I want to talk about mental health, and it's going to take me 2 of these sessions to do it. When I say mental health, I mean mental illness, insanity, what we call crazy or nuts, what they used to call mad or stark raving mad. Whenever there is another one of those terrible shootings, an all too regular occurrence now, I understand the use of the word mad. Some forms of mental health are excluded from consideration here. Autism, for example, I think that's more of a mental condition than an illness or a disease, because it does not lead to the harm of others. There is no danger or destruction connected to it. When I talk about mental illness, I mean a state of mind that leads to unpredictable behavior which could pose a threat to society. I don't think there is any national, that is, federal policy when it comes to mental health. There is no formal state approach to it, and certainly no regional way to deal with mental illness. I think that this is so because, advanced and civilized as we are, we don't know what to do about it. We don't really understand it, and we can't correct it. So mostly, if we can, we ignore it. We're probably pretty good at identifying mental illness. Schizophrenia, PTSD, OCD, manic depressive, and so on. But there isn't much we can do about it. I don't think they do lobotomies like in the cuckoo's nest anymore, and I think electroshock is out too, except perhaps in the most extreme cases. My guess is that our main way of dealing with the mentally ill, when we do, is through medication. We put them on meds. Some of these are strong enough to turn the patient into the human equivalent of moss. Lesser doses produce behavior more like puppies and kittens, and the problem is solved, sort of. Mostly we don't hear about people who are mentally ill. Since we can't cure it, we ignore it, the way we ignore foster children, the poor, and drug addicts. The few times I hear any discussion of insanity is when it spills over into other areas and creates a problem for society that is too big and too dangerous to ignore. I can think of 3 ways that mental illness comes to the public's attention. One is when some investigative TV reporter decides it's time to do a piece on overcrowding in the prison system, which is yet another disturbing subject that we want to avoid if we possibly can. Lock them up, throw them away, out of sight, out of mind. The reporter will interview prison officials who will say that the jail is swamped and it's so bad that they have to release some lesser offenders, the nonviolent ones, just let them go, because they have no room. They're already working at twice capacity. And the warden will say that the 2 biggest problems he faces are that he has no money in any budget for the prison system, and that the bulk of the prisoners are not hardened criminals, they are people who are mentally ill. They don't belong in a jail, he says. They belong in some kind of hospital or treatment center, but there's no budget for that either, so those people rot in jail where there is no or woefully inadequate medical treatment for them. Another time I hear about mental illness is when people talk about the homeless, which again is not often. They will say that, of course, as if everyone knows this, that most of the homeless people are mentally ill. And when I hear that, I wonder, are the homeless mentally ill because they're homeless, or are they homeless because they're mentally ill? I think it could work both ways. In either case, not much, if anything, is done for those people. They're cast-offs, shadows. Recently, in the area where I live, there's been a surge in deaths by heroin overdoses. The bodies are literally piling up. The coroner's office can't keep up with them. They say that more people are dying from this than in car accidents. And again, no one knows exactly what to do about it. These addicts are helpless. They're like a special case of mental illness, one induced by a drug, not cured by it. There are calls for understanding, mostly by the rare exceptions that have survived addiction and are trying to help others. But there is no set way to deal with this, except to hope it somehow goes away, or doesn't affect anyone you love. It's like putting a smear of blood on the post outside your door, praying that the god of pestilence will pass you by.